do my prerequisite. The first round I did stuff from CC&D magazine, and in the second round I'm going to share with you a poem or two from the Down in the Dirt issue this month, which is the November 2022 issue titled Reaching for the Stars. And titles of issues are based on titles that are within the accepted writings within the book. The first one I'm going to do, because I always try to have some sort of science poll, is to have a periodic table poll, because there is a Twitterverse one. Because after I'd written them, a chemist friend of mine said, hey, there's a contest going on, so I decided to do it, and I actually won third place, but I'm like, I'm still going to write one for every element, and so I wrote something. And when I was following up, I did a bunch for the poem Iron, and I thought I would share with you one of them, and it is titled Iron-Bloodied Eyelids. Doctors knew of my brain injury. When blood seeps from around my brain, it collects only in my eyelids. Iron gives blood color, coming through in my blood-filled, iron-rich eyelids. I have an iron will, so shine a light in my eye. See if I respond. Short one for Iron, and it exists in both of these in black and white, but I found it on a screen that I can make it big for you. When I have a short poem and I can release it as an image as well, I will have Iron-Bloodied Eyelids. I actually did this in a show in Chicago at the time, and John is there shining a light in my eyeball, and I see that there's a glare, and I could shine a light in my eyeball right now in this Zoom meeting as well. But that was actually done from that show as well. So you got a short one for your Twitter-length periodic table of poems. This next one that is actually in Down in the Dirt toward the back of the book is actually a poem that appears in the second part. It's right here. And in the second part of the Poetry Book Testament, so I can show off this and this. What? I can show them both off? You're kidding me. The part one is all post-Roe v. Wade poetry, but part two is about dealing with suicide. Loved ones, poets, soldiers, and the like. And there is a number of them in this issue, and I thought I would share one of them with you. Written after a poet friend of mine had assisted suicide in Canada, because you don't have that in the United States. This is a piece called Gods Want Their Life to End. When you are in the presence of a god, you think you'll learn all the answers. You think you'll feel above and beyond. But I say no. It never works that way. Because when I see that sun ray, when it's all supposed to be different, and you realize that the god is just a poet sharing their victory and their despair. We recite verses from memory and think this makes a difference, but we forget what lines we're spouting, and we forget the verses that really matter. For before I made my first pilgrimage, I received letters from my poet God as he poured out unto me his pains. Some gods want their life to end, too. He shared his anxiety of having to lead a normal life after witnessing the atrocities of his world that left him in despair and shame and guilt and sorrow, and don't forget his hopelessness in order to get an ounce of attention. But I've learned the mind of a god is not unlike the mind of a poet, for you know your soul still has more work to do, more to accomplish. And isn't that the pain of every god, every tormented poet? People think you have all the answers, and you do, mostly. But the problem with the depression is overwhelming when, after all your work, they say in the end, your only choice is to suffer. But the poets, the gods, They're supposed to be the ones with the power. Where does that leave you when you hold someone's hand, say it will get better, and you don't know in the end if it will? The thing, thank you. The thing is about that poet friend, C. Ra McCourt, Curtis Raymond. He was the sun god, and so that reference was a very clear, present link. It's like, I've met my god, and it was a very poignant link. And that's part 2, which is not as long as other parts, but which is why I'm always going to go back to part 1 of the book of the pieces. This is my now new rule, is including some post-Roe v. Wade piece for the last poem that I'm going to be reading in every round. So this is one, and I've chosen these next ones very specifically because it is voting time. And in fact, I voted early and I didn't know what to do with my sticker, so it's on the back of my phone right now because I figure, what am I going to do with this? It's going to go away anyway. So this is a poem that's called Vote Changing, the System's Solution. I don't know if everybody else, I voted early, but it's Tuesday in America for you guys. I'll just shush. Here's the poem. Vote Changing, the System's Solution. It has been a year since siblings told me they would never visit a state, which I'm afraid I now claim residence, since they passed the worst anti-abortion laws. I keep stressing this isn't my home. I still vehemently say this isn't my choice, but I still live here. What does that say about my now hopelessness against the state? The saddest part about these laws, the saddest part is that so many women have to fight a battle that's so uphill that rock climbers and athletes couldn't stand a chance against this new and intrusive state. That's truly the saddest part. But the saddest part about these laws, especially for those who don't think they're directly, immediately affected by the restrictive passing of these laws, is that after fighting so long, you now read news about how the 1-year anniversary of SB 8, limiting abortion rights, and the new, now sweeping swing of Texas opinions, is well over half of Texans now strongly support abortion rights. After one long, arduous year, I see photos of Texas women in my now town marching, depicting signs of the Texas flag stating, "Don't mess with Texas women." And, of course, the woman in the photo is just about the only one with her mask off, either to show her disgust for the restrictive law or so that she can claim her 15 minutes of fame. This is a noble cause, but we've already been messed with, so then what? My isolation escalates, and I read surveys suggesting a change in the minds. Most surveys and polls don't pass laws. That's the problem, but surveys and polls don't pass laws or overturn them. Like Queen Elizabeth II, who just passed away, I have never told people how to vote, though that's all that any news article or report can talk about now. I have heard that independents, or people who have voted Republican, are now changing their mind just this one time and voting for a Democrat if it gives women rights. I can't tell you what to do. I never will. Because I cannot tell you what the platform of one political party is worth changing your vote over one single issue, even if that issue is life and death for women versus life and death for clumps of cells, which, wait a minute, don't understand or fathom life as we know it. You'd think it was a simple decision. You'd think it was cut and dry, as it should be. But then the cards are so stacked against women's rights. Think again. It makes me wonder if voting for change is literally the only thing we can do. Do the signs and protests matter? Does anyone listen when our complaints and cries seem to fall on deaf ears? When backwards irrationality prevails, how does being the loudest voice on the street make an ounce of difference? If a person protests in the middle of a forest of people, does it make a sound to any lawmaker who chooses to close their ears to reason? For how will they listen to the truth?
There's a tree fall in the woods. No one has it.
Exactly.
Very well done.
Thank you. And now